sex magic. Does it work? Yes. Is it harmful? It can be. Is it helpful? It can be. Father, we ask that you guide us. Cleanse the energy in this space. Speak through me. Speak through me. Cleanse us right now in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. Jesus. The thing about sex magic is no one really needs to show you how to use it. Most of us learn it through watching and listening to other people. Most of us learn it by trying to be something we're not, repeating things that we hear on TV, in conversations with other people, but primarily through the need to control. I was practicing sex magic before I knew what it was. I had no idea that what I was doing was taking someone else's will, and inserting my own will. Taking someone else's options and inserting my own demand. I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as, I want this person to like me forever. I want this person to love how I do it forever. The problem with sex magic is it backfires. The very thing that it is that you desire from the sex or the performance of your sex is the very thing you get, and the other person walks away scot-free. That is, until they wake up. Most people don't have any issue with taking someone else's will. Most people don't care as long as they get their way. The problem is it's almost like rape. When you say something or will something to be for your own benefit, it can create chaos. In my case, it was practiced on me first, like many of us women. Has he ever asked you, is this mine? And you humbly say, yes. Or, do I do it like nobody else? And in the moment you say, yes. That's sex magic. it takes away the opportunity for someone else to come into your energy, and you are almost zapped and sucked into that person forever. And once that person has a grip on your energy, they can almost make you do anything. They can even put you in a delusional state in which it is very hard for you to operate without them. It is very hard for you to see through their manipulation. It is very hard for you to understand that what they are doing to you could be a problem. Even more so, if you are someone who is abundant, if you are someone who creates opportunities, a person that is close to God and has the favor of God, especially when it is visible on your life, you are the number one person that someone with an incubus or a succubus would want to attach to, because their proximity to you, their proximity to your abundance and your divinity creates limitless opportunities for them. This series is about dark work. And over years, I have studied different kinds of dark work, occult and esoteric kinds of work. I won't say I'm an expert at anything, but this topic for sure, I know a thing or two about a thing or two. I had to learn sex magic was a problem after I realized that it had been done on me. As a young woman, you, especially when you have low self-esteem, you want to be desired by every man, and especially the man in which you are with. You want to be constantly on their mind. You want to constantly be in their heart. You want them to want you better than they want anything else. And so sometimes you do these stupid things like ask for us to be together forever. Let his soul want to be with me. And then the next thing you know, you have a stalker at your door. Or the next thing you know, there is some craziness that you're sucked into that you can't get out of. You look back years later and you're like, oh, I've been in a trance. That's sex magic. One of the best portals, the best portal for spiritual warfare is the sexual organs, the sacral chakra, the vagina, the penis, your mouth. It is the best place for something to seep its way into not only your body, but into your psyche, into your spirit, and take over. People often talk about legions of demons, legions of spirits. And people often don't realize that they have these attachments. They don't realize that through sex, they are creating these different levels of attachment with people. It's important that we realize that sex is a gun, not just because our sexual health could be at risk of disease, STIs, STDs. But it's a gun, an Uzi, because our spiritual health is at play. Tonight, I'm drinking my normal afternoon blend from path756.com. You can get your own blend there. Everything is custom made to order for you. But back to sex magic. Domination happens with sex magic. Domination is most likely associated with the demonic archetype of Jezebel. A lot of times, and especially right now in church, pastors, leaders are overtaken with the spirit of Jezebel already. Lust of the flesh alone, in terms of how big you want your church to be. I want this. I want more members. I want my members to look this way. That's already part of this domination. I want my church to be number one. It's already a part of the domination. That's already an offshoot of Jezebel. But the moment a pastor ties himself with a woman, be it a woman outside of his marriage, the moment he intertwines himself with that relation, there is a different bond created. And then we hear of stories like the one we're hearing now from Detroit, of these long-standing relationships that happen year over year over year over year, to where a person just cannot get rid of this desire for this other person, or they cannot disconnect from this very bad thing of an affair. Oftentimes, when the pastor or the person is in leadership and there is a power dynamic that is off, it is even more of a problem and easier for a person to be overtaken by love magic and sex magic. Nowadays, you can have love magic or sex magic done in 15 minutes for $25. Want to make a person fall in love with you? Go online, go to TikTok, go to Facebook, Instagram. There's somebody there that will cook up a spell for you for $25 to try to ensure that the person you love will love you back forever. And I say to that, hey, that's your thing, have at it. But be careful you're putting that work on the right person. Not every person, not every soul can be penetrated in that way. Not every spirit is unprotected in that way. For me, one of the decisions I had to make for my ascension was to be celibate, which was hard because I love sex. I love sex, just like everybody else. And I've talked about some things over time. In our last series, I talked about an orgasm series that happened over 3 days, of over 100 orgasms in 3 days. The interesting dynamic in that situation was that it was not with someone I loved. It was not with someone I was going to be in a relationship with. And it was not with someone that I knew well enough. But it was with a minister, a pastor, who was able to get me to relax my mind and body well enough in order to surrender in a way to receiving pleasure. Now, the crazy part about this particular incident was there were levels of BDSM, which, if you're not familiar, look that up. We'll get there. After studying BDSM and talking to my therapist about it, we thought, okay, this could work. Let's see. What happened is I ran into a person who I did not know was a pastor, who did not present as a pastor, a preacher, or a teacher. He only presented as a man well over 6 feet, with a body like something you would imagine had been carved out of Africa in God's hands, with a dominance and a ability to cultivate a moment, cultivate a trust, cultivate a safety that I had not received ever before in my life. As a woman, well into my 30s, I had not had vaginal orgasms like most people, most women, right? Not uncommon. But in this particular instance, I could tell that this person thought that they had won over my spirit. It had become, the situation had become something very different for them. There was almost an anger when he realized that he had not captivated me in such a way in which I would do whatever he asked. It was almost this great disdain. Things got uglier once he realized he hadn't penetrated my spiritual protection. And thank God that I got out of that situation safely. But there were lots of wonderful things achieved, no less. And I don't regret it. I'm thankful for it. The experience was divine in a way in which it allowed me to check in with myself, to understand what it was that I desired, what I needed, and what I had not been receiving. What was wrong with me, so much so that I couldn't relax enough to be in a place to enjoy sex? How much sex had I had in my life and had not really felt free? How many people made off with orgasms while I was unsatisfied? It really woke me up. It was a divine plan, it seems, from God. It showed me that My spiritual protection was high enough, but my emotional security and safety was completely shot in my permanent situation. It showed me that I had been completely warped from sexual abuse and abandonment starting from the age of about 7 years old. It put me in a place, it put me in a mind state of, oh, I'm broken, I'm hurt, I need help, I need deliverance. It really allowed me to turn the camera back into me and say, what is wrong with me? What is it that I have done that limits me from achieving something so wonderful? I was under the domination of sex magic. Sex, any kind of magic, can be created by just the words you say. Is it mine? Yes. You have just given your power to someone else. You have just given your soul to someone else. And imagine saying that every time you have sex with every person you've ever been with. You end up building these spiritual, these soul ties associated with sex that you never get over. It's the very reason why 20 years later, you're still thinking about the person you had sex with 20 years before in whatever situation you were in. It's one of those reasons why women stay in relationships so long, because there is some level of domination happening from the person, or some sort of deep soul tie that has been developed, that has seeped into the skin, into the membrane, into the muscle, into the bloodstream, into the spirit stream of the very person, from the person you sleep with. We create these ties with each other. And in church, they talk about soul ties, but they talk about soul ties in a way in which it scares you from really having sex. Perhaps that's the intent. But sex is not bad. Love is not bad. It's healthy. You see. No one really dives into the archetypes that have access to you, because the very thing is because of the lust of the flesh that this world has in general. We all have. It opens the door for so many other things. The next thing you know, your money is messed up because your money is tied to your sacral chakra. The very next thing you know, you can't be creative because your creativity is tied to your sacral chakra. The very next thing you know, you are in a deep depression because that soul tie, that sex magic has seeped through your sacral chakra into your root chakra. And then all of a sudden, you're not a confident person. All of a sudden, you can't make decisions on your own. All of a sudden, you feel a little disconnected from God. All of a sudden, you become this tyrant. You become unloving, unkind, ungenerous, if that's a word. You get disconnected from the life source because of the spiritual attachment to you. Now, am I saying that sex is wrong? No. Nope. Am I saying that sex is powerful? It also has the ability, you have the ability to, with a loving partner, the two of you can create magic. You can knock out every goal you have. You can create all kinds of things. You can become the most powerful people your lineage has ever known with sex magic. When you work together and freely give of yourselves, you can do anything. But people limit magic, witchcraft, to spells, tarot cards, and witches. But the reality is we're creating magic every day. It's in our mind. It's in our mouth. It's in how we assert ourselves. It's in how we show up in a room. That is magic. That is witchcraft. All we do is call out to a deity. We call outside of ourselves to something to help us to gain some level of advantage over a situation. And that is magic and both witchcraft. Words are spells. If I say to you during sex, I love you, but I never tell you that any other time, that is witchcraft. That's magic. That has the ability to warp the brain into really believing that there is something more to this than it really is. How many of us women have had that happen to us? How many men? Women can be diabolical when it comes to sex. Women can be very problematic. And listen, I admit it. I was using sex magic long before I knew what it was. The thing about being a spiritual person, a healer, a high priest or high priestesses, a shaman, really, you really have to experience things for yourself in order to be able to defeat the thing that is assigned to you. For instance, a person that's been possessed can tell you what it's like to be possessed. A person that's been possessed is probably the best person to work with God to become an exorcist, because they understand that level of warfare. There is a certain level of skill you build up from warfare, spiritual warfare, sex, magic, love, magic, any sort of magic. Anytime you encounter any sort of magic in that way, you start to build a muscle. You start to be able to spot it out across a room. And if you're born with heightened gifts, or you have heightened gifts from an early age, it's even easier to spot. The moment you want to get out of it, the moment you decide, I've had enough, you can. It only takes tapping into the thing that you know that you need to tap into, and then you break free. Do I think sex is specifically for marriage? Well, that has to be something you take up with God. If you're a Christian and you believe that sex is only for marriage, then that's when you should have sex, once you're married. I submit to you that whether you're married to a person or not, the moment you create that bond, that sexual bond, you are tied to that person in another realm. There's even a thing called spiritual spouse. Spiritual spouses is not a thing from God. It is where your soul has spiritually married another person. You have this tight hold on your spirit and certainly your sacral chakra, where your body will even go into a place where it almost only responds to that person. That happens. Not in every case, but it is not of God. You may even need to think about that person in order to achieve any level of arousal or any level of comfort. That is not a divine thing. You can break that. You can break those soul ties. They can be broken. Sex magic is dark work. It is not divine. It is not of God. Whether you are married or not, it is not a good thing to do if both people, and I am limiting it to two because I do believe anything outside of two people in a sexual situation is not divine. And as a person who has lived a very fruitful life in experiences, I can assure you there is nothing divine about a threesome at all. But two people that open themselves up to each other, two people that agree to build a bond and create something from that, can do anything. You will leap higher, you will be stronger, you will feel powerful, and things can happen. That's manifestation in a different way. Church members can argue, oh no, that's not true. The marriage bed is undefiled. It can be defiled. It can be. As a living witness, I can tell you. It's much more easily defiled when one person is doing a thing that another person is not aware of, or one person is dominating a situation over the other. You don't even need a third person. I hope that this conversation with you and I helps you understand that dark work is not always a brujeria. It's not always a Ouija board. It's not always a tarot card or Palo Santo, which is typically the limited belief around dark work, right? Those are the stereotypical things when people say, oh, that person's working some sort of witchcraft. Witchcraft is so much easier to do. Words are spells. Energy The intention behind things creates the magic. No other tool is needed. Simply your mind and your heart can create either light work or dark work. Either way, it's important that you understand that there is more to this life, more to this spiritual war that we are in than someone who's not of your faith. You don't need to look outward to see if someone is creating witchcraft or working witchcraft or using magic. You only need to look within. I love y'all. Good night.